Welcome everyone to New HD NYC with your host Ray K, available on all major podcast platforms and powered by New HD Media. Now here's your host, Ray K.
Now we have someone who fronts the jazz rock Latin band Project Grand Slam, who has just released her new album, East Side Sessions, which I just heard some of the tracks before the interview. Robert Miller, the leader, has a very significant track record in the music industry. The new album released on its own label, Cakewalk, which you got to love the name. And we'll talk about the realities of releasing the new product under this current lockdown, the coronavirus, and the pitfalls in the music business in general. 9 previous Project Grand Slam albums have been released, including number 1 on Billboard, is what my research showed me, Trippin' in 2018, released via Sony/The Orchard, and it started creating the awareness for this great music. I was impressed. Performed with Edgar Winter, yes, and music festivals, the whole works. Robert has a legal background, ran 21 records, and he does offer his services as a pro bono basis for many artists, which is pretty cool. Giving back, as they say. Robert Miller, welcome to the podcast.
Ray, thanks so much. But you had one thing wrong. I got to correct.
Okay.
It wasn't 21 records. It was 32 records.
Oh, 32 records. Okay. All right. Well,
You were close.
Yeah. I was, 1 decade under it,
That's right.
All right. Tell us about the new album, East Side Sessions, please.
Sure. Well, first of all, my band is Project Grand Slam, and I formed the band originally back in 2007, but I totally reorganized the band in 2015, in part because the original guys that were in the band were located all around the world. We couldn't really play together. And the music that we were playing at that time was basically instrumental contemporary jazz. Something that I liked at the time, but it didn't kind of stir my soul. In 2015, I made a decision. Like I said, I reorganized the band and I surrounded myself with a group of young, really talented musicians, almost all from foreign countries that had come to New York and to the United States to kind of, make their mark. So I'm talking about places like Mexico, Venezuela, Cuba, Canada, or Puerto Rico as well. It added a flavor and a vitality and a youthfulness to the music, which I then took as I started to write. And I began to write more and more vocal music because one of the things I did was I added a female singer. I always liked vocal music, and I wanted to move the band in that direction. If you fast forward to East Side Sessions, which is our most recent release, we were very, very lucky in that we completed the album literally about a week or two before the pandemic shut the world down.
Okay.
So we had recorded it at the end of January, and then I started to mix it and master it, and it was finished, like by the middle of February. So as opposed to so many musicians that just got stopped in their tracks by the pandemic, we at least had a finished album. And I put it out initially, and it got spectacular reviews, I have to say, just spectacular reviews. We're very fortunate in that there's a group of reviewers that have followed us through the albums and through the years, and they really know my music at this point. And they all.
Some of the reviews I got 12 scorching tracks, impeccable, awesome. It's a miracle to me, the music. I mean, it's there's like 15 of them, and they're all like unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just great. In fact, my family always kids me and asks me how much did I have to pay for these reviews. I said, no. These are really educated reviewers. They all work for music-related websites, podcasts, etc. And they're smart, and they followed us. So it's been great.
The music has sort of I listened to a few you have on YouTube, I think it is, and it has that reggae sound to it. Is that sort of your style? At least the main song with the girl lead singer. It's a great video too. I mean, she has a great voice.
Thank you.
Marilyn, that's Marilyn?
Marilyn Castillo is my lead singer. Yeah, okay. Look, as you said at the beginning, we're kind of a fusion of rock, jazz, and Latin. And I pride myself on the fact that the music that I write, and it's all original music, except with one exception that I'll speak about in a second. Everything that we do has great variety to it. And that's something that I pride myself in. I don't like it when artists, and there are a number of them, basically record the same song over and over and over again. I get it. They're playing to their audience. That's their base, so to speak. But that's not something that turns me on. So I like to have variety. And yes, is reggae a part of what we do? Sure. We have one of the songs on the new album is called It's a Miracle to Me. It's a joyous, upbeat song, and it's got kind of an islandy type of feel to it. And in fact, right after the pandemic hit, and we were saying to ourselves, what are we going to do now? Because all of our plans were canceled. We were going to be playing festivals overseas. We had a European tour set up. Everything got canceled for us and for every other musician out there. And I said, okay, the one thing we can do is we've got this new album. Let's put out some videos. So the first video that we put out was the song that I just mentioned, It Is a Miracle to Me. And I started to try and get into the whole idea of, well, how can we record this? Can we have people playing the music all in their different houses and studios? And the answer is you can't do it that way. Your audience probably doesn't know this because it's not well known, but there's this technical problem called latency.
Okay.
If you're in different locations and you're trying to play along with the music, everybody's got a slightly different amount of time before they get the signal. And anyway, it doesn't work.
When they did that over COVID, they had like the Rolling Stones got together, they were all in different houses, and it was cute, but it just didn't seem to work. Is that why? There was something about it that just was like slagging along, and it just was like, yeah, it's okay, but
what some people have done is they have recorded live in their separate places, and then they edit it together.
Okay.
We were a little bit more primitive than that. We just had everybody kind of lip syncing and lip playing to the track on the first video. And it went over really well. And we did a second video for another song from the album. And then when it came time for the third video, I started to get a little bit more creative because I just didn't want to do the same thing over and over again. And we did a cover of a Beatles song. One of the things that I like to do every album, it's because I grew up in the 1960s and I just love all the bands that were around in the 60s. And I've recorded songs by Hendrix and Cream and the Kinks and the Who. Well, this time around, I said I'm going to go for the Beatles, but I decided I was going to take one of the most obscure Beatles songs I could find, because otherwise everybody, rams at you and says, what are you talking about? You can't do better than the Beatles. So I took a song that Ringo sang in the movie A Hard Day's Night called I Want to Be Your Man. And I changed the lyrics around a little bit because I got a female singer. I said, well, it's now called I Want to Be Your Girl. And we decided not only we're going to put it out as a single, but I said to my video guy, can you do something interesting here? So he put together an animated video that's kind of like our version of Yellow Submarine. And it was spectacular, okay? Just spectacular. So different from everybody else's videos and worked out great on YouTube.
it is a great video. I saw it myself. You had a couple Beatle things going on there with the Yellow Submarine and
That's right.
and the Ringo tune. Let me flash back, Robert. Do you have? I know you started out as an attorney. I mean, get into how you got into music, or did you always have natural ability, and how did that all start?
Well, if you really want to go back to the beginning, my father was a musician. My father played the trumpet.
Okay.
And I was told at a very early age that I was going to learn to play an instrument. So they started me out on piano, and I spent about a year playing piano, and I hated it. I hated practicing. I hated the piano. I hated everything. So my parents said to me, okay, you can stop piano, but you got to play another instrument. What do you want to play? So I said, okay, I'll play trumpet like my father. And I then played trumpet throughout junior high school and high school. And I took lessons from a guy who was the first chair at the Radio City Music Hall Orchestra. And I played basically classical music. But, as I said, I was a child of the 60s. So there was this little group from Liverpool that came out in the mid 60s, and then the whole British invasion thing. And it was not very cool to play trumpet any longer. So I taught myself guitar and I taught myself the bass. And the reason I became a bass player is because I had some friends at the time. We all had acoustic guitars. We didn't even know what an electric guitar was. And we decided the only way we could do electric guitars, because we were, teenagers and we had no money, we would take these little reel-to-reel tape recorders that we all had, like the Norelco tape recorders, and we would literally scotch tape the microphones onto the body of the acoustic guitars, and that made them, quote, electric guitars.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I started from. Fast forwarding, I played rock and roll in my teenage years, cover band, that kind of thing. And then I got very lucky. One summer, when I was about 19 years old, I signed up for a music course. And one of the things that they did was they assigned you a teacher. And I happened to get assigned a teacher on the bass, a guy named Jimmy Garrison. And for anybody in your audience that knows who he is, Jimmy Garrison was John Coltrane's bass player. So this guy was top of the heap. And one of the things that he did was he taught me about jazz. He showed me what jazz was all about, because I was just strictly a rock and roll player. And after a little while with him, I went back to live in Boston, and he put me in touch with people there. And I started to play throughout all of the New England area. This was the jazz fusion era that we're talking about in the 70s. Groups like Weather Report, Mahavishnu Orchestra, they were spectacular groups. They really were. And they played a form of rock combined with jazz, and that's what I did. And then when that was over, I had to make a living. Music is a very unforgiving field, like all the arts. And most people go into music full-time when they're in their 20s. And, all the guys and all the bands that and your audience knows, that's when they made it. But I didn't feel I had the luxury. I was trying to make a living. I was working 3 different jobs. I was playing music at night. And I kept saying to myself, okay, I'll do it one day. And one day turned into a week, to a month, to a year. And it just didn't work out. And I stopped playing music for about 15 years, if you can believe it.
Wow.
And a friend of mine who was in law school said to me, well, why are you starving like this and driving yourself crazy? Why don't you go to law school? And I said, well, why? Why would I want to go to law school? And he said, well, you could do law during the day and you could play jazz at night. And I thought about it for about a nanosecond. Okay, that's how stupid I was. And I said, okay, that sounds great. And so I went to law school, and that's how I became a lawyer. And I did that for a while. But my dream was always to come back to music full time. And like I said, I was finally able to do it about 5 years ago. And, those 5 years have made all the difference in the world. We've got 9 incredibly celebrated albums. We've got over 4 million video views. We've got over 1 million Spotify streams. We've played concerts and festivals all around the world. As you pointed out, we've opened for great artists like Blues Traveler and Edgar Winter. So I'm living La Vida Loca. What can I say?
Let me hear on the new album, the video partners with this spaghetti Western thing. Tell us about that, please.
Well, I said to you before, I like
we do our research here, Robert.
What's that? Yeah, you do your research. I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed. I told you before, I like to do a variety of things. And one of the things I wrote for the album was kind of a cowboy Western song. I called it The Podness, okay? And it's all about 2 partners that were fighting with each other because one kind of screwed the other one, got their comeuppance later. And remember, I have a female singer. So when we went to do the video for this thing, I said to my video guy, we need to kind of figure out how we can do this. It's a Western movie kind of motif, but it's got a female, censure to it. And he looked around, he spent several weeks, and he came back with an Italian spaghetti Western starring a great actress named Elsa Martinelli. And sure enough, everything that they did in that movie fit the video. So we put the video together and we put it out, and you either loved it or hated it. Okay. And thankfully, there were more people that loved it than hated it. There were a bunch of people that just didn't get it. They don't understand what the heck we were doing. But there were enough people that got it. And I always appreciate when that happens.
Tell me about the Summer of Love 2020.
Okay. So this past year has been very difficult for everybody. And for musicians in particular, as I said, you can't play live. You can't tour. You can't do a lot of things. And I said to myself, what am I going to do? And aside from putting out videos, which we've discussed, I write music. So I started to write. And then came the question of, well, okay, am I going to record this? And if I am going to record it, how do I do that? I don't have a home studio. And I can't go into the studio with my musicians. They're all around the world. And not only that, there's a pandemic. So I literally started to record on my iPhone. I mean, It sounds crazy, but I started to record onto my iPhone. And I then took what I was recording on my iPhone and I put it into, I gave it to my engineer in New York by email. And he worked his magic on it. And lo and behold, and then I bought some equipment for my home studio, and we started to put this album together like a Frankenstein. You know, I would record a part here and a part there. Then I'd send it to my guitar player. He'd fly in a part for this. I'd send it to my saxophone player. He'd fly in a part. And then it all had to be assembled into something that worked. Anyway, long story short, that's what happened. We were able to put this album together over the summer. I called it the Summer of Love 2020 because the theme to the record is love, because I felt that love is what's going to get us through this pandemic.
So through the terribleness of the pandemic, and whenever you have these things, good things come out of them. Is that one of the things you see coming out of this? Is people being more grateful and appreciative for maybe how things used to be, and love is really the answer?
I think so. I think that if you don't come away from this pandemic appreciating what you have and who you have, then there's something wrong with you, okay? Because pandemic has put everything into you still there?
Hello?
Yeah, hold on one second.
Okay.
I was losing my power here.
Okay, we're not live, so, no problem.
Okay. So I don't know what happened there, but give me 1 second. There we go.
Take your time.
Okay. I'm going to just move this around like this so that it's okay. There we go. We can continue this way.
All right.
So like I said, the pandemic has made a huge impression on me and I think on all other musicians. You just can't look at life the same way that you did before. I think most of us know somebody that's come down with COVID. Hopefully not many people know people that have passed away, but it's a terrible time in life. And I feel that music needs to be part of the way that we get through this. So I've consciously written uplifting songs and songs about love because I felt that that's what was needed in order to get us all through. So that's what Summer of Love was all about.
Okay. I'm kind of waiting during these tumultuous times, I guess Vietnam, there's always great music, it seems, that comes out of these things. And I'm kind of waiting for the one song by one of these great artists that is like, wow, there it is. Like, I don't know if it's a Springsteen or someone throughout history, there's always that one guy that, comes up with the song, and I haven't kind of heard it yet, as far as COVID-19 goes, maybe it's coming, but there's a lot there to drum up enough emotion for some greatness to appear, in song.
Well, you're right about that. There's a song that I made, the first song on Summer of Love, that you should listen to.
Maybe this is the one. Okay.
It's called Aches and Pains.
Okay.
Okay. And it's literally about the aches and pains that we all have, but it's also about the mental aches and pains, the emotional aches and pains. that we have, and it's got a Credence kind of vibe to it. So maybe your audience would be interested. I have not put this album out yet. I haven't put that single out yet, but maybe you should listen to it.
How do we find it? Where is it?
It's I can send you a link for it.
Okay.
It's not released yet, as I said, but I think it's a cool song, and that's one of the reasons I made it the first one on the album. And it who knows? I mean, I don't know if it's going to become the song for the pandemic, but I think it captures a certain feel for the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah, please send that. Yeah, I'm waiting for it. When do you think? I know it's impossible to know, because who knows what's going to happen next year. I think it'll be better than this year. There's a lot of good things on the horizon, whether it's vaccines or therapeutics or just time. When do you think live music will return? Is it? I know. When do you think it will return? That's my question.
Well, look, if I'm being realistic, I think we'd be fortunate to have this vaccine get really mass distributed by the first half of 2021. So
Right.
if we're really lucky, maybe the next summer, freeze everything up. If not, just got to hold your breath.
Okay, that would be a good goal if that happened, right?
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet. It would be great for everybody. And in the meantime, look, musicians are doing what they can. There's a lot of folks that are doing the live stream stuff. We haven't done it again because my musicians are spread out everywhere. And for us to do it properly, we'd have to be in a studio and have the right equipment and all of that. But that's one of the things that people are doing. I mentioned videos. We're doing videos, and of course, recordings. You do what you can.
Okay. I'm kind of waiting for, how life is unpredictable, which is, like I always knew it, but this was like blew me away. Like a year from now, if I would have told you all this would have happened in a year, they're going to shut sports down, everything's down, you would have thought I was crazy, And
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we could be shocked on the good side. I mean, can surprises happen the opposite? I'm just hoping something really great happens that we don't even know about. I mean, I guess that can happen too.
Hey, keep smiling, buddy.
Okay.
Keep smiling.
Okay. Hey, I'm a dreamer. What has the pandemic done to business in general in the music industry?
Oh, it's destroyed the music industry.
It's actually destroyed it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everything is down dramatically. Musicians' income is down dramatically. I mean, just look at the guys in my band. They all hustle like crazy to, in good times to find continuing work. Some of them teach, some of them play with different bands. They play different venues, etc. But aside from a handful of venues that have allowed live musicians to play, there's really very little of that going on. So it's been terribly difficult. And it's even worse because Congress won't pass the legislation that's necessary in order to give these folks the kind of unemployment that they need to get through this.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't know what else to say about that, except for hopefully, we hit, I don't know if it's rock bottom, but something turns up, Let's segue. I want to do a hit and miss, and then I want to wrap up with some pretty cool questions I'm thinking about now. First thing that comes to your mind. You ready, Robert?
Yep.
All right. What is your favorite color?
Orange.
Okay. If you were on a deserted island and you could bring one music CD with you, or album, or download, what would you bring? You're there for 3 years. You could bring one piece of music with you.
Cream's Wheels of Fire.
Okay. Not even a thought about it. That's the one. Yeah.
Just hey, you said don't think about it, so that's what popped into my head.
Absolutely. If you were in a foxhole and you had to bring one person in there with you, other than any family members, who would it be?
A foxhole?
Yeah.
I would bring Trump and I would push him out of the foxhole. I would say, Charge!
That's the first time I had anything close to that. Okay. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie?
Yeah.
The Producers.
Okay. And who's your favorite actor or actress?
You mean in that movie or just in general?
All time.
Oh dear. Favorite actor. I'm drawing a blank on that.
Okay.
So probably somebody like Pacino.
Okay. Well, what's your favorite part in the movie The Producers?
Well, if you remember, it's a story about these two guys.
It was on Broadway, right? That was the one on Broadway.
Broadway, but it was a movie that was made by Mel Brooks back in 1968,
Mhm.
and it was about finding the worst show ever created and having it inexplicably turn into a hit. So it was a great movie.
What is the best advice you've ever received or would give to somebody?
The best advice: know yourself. Okay, a lot of people, I think, don't really understand who they are or what they're about. Know yourself.
Including best advice for music, know yourself. Does that include that, or is that a different piece of advice?
Well, yeah, I'd say, for music, it's just keep doing what you're doing. Don't give up. Okay, this will all end one day, and keep being creative.
Okay. Now, since you mentioned "I Want to Be Your Man" or "I Want to," the Beatles cover, I like asking this to people like yourself: Lennon or McCartney?
I was always more of a McCartney guy,
Okay.
only because I think that he's so brilliant at melody and he's a spectacular bass player.
Okay.
But we're talking a smidgen difference between him and Lennon. The two of them are just, when you think about it,
Okay.
two guys that had no musical training at all to create what they created is just spectacular.
I haven't really, I'm a Beatle fan. I haven't really heard it put just the way that seems to be totally accurate, in the Beatles. You hear all these different things. Can you sum up what they were in like 3 sentences? I haven't heard it yet. They're like, yeah, that's what it is. I guess it's maybe just too big of a thing, like what they were about, the Beatles.
I mean, musically,
every way.
Every way they defined the '60s. They changed the world. I mean, it's a trite kind of phrase to use, but and I've even said to my kids that I want them all before they become adults to watch A Hard Day's Night. Why? Because that movie captured that era. You can describe it, you can talk about it, but that movie captured the era, and it'll never happen again. So it was spectacular.
Now, if you had to meet one person in the world tomorrow, Robert, who would it be? I'm a genie. Anyone in the world, I'm going to let you meet tomorrow.
Anyone in the world.
Yeah. Live or dead. They could be dead, live, doesn't matter.
My dad.
Okay.
My dad passed away a long, long time ago, way before I went into the music that I've been talking about. And I'd love to have him see what's happened.
See what's happened with your life or just the whole world?
In my music. In fact, I wrote a song on the new album, Summer of Love, which is called Heaven. And I wrote it for my father, but for others as well that had passed on. It's all about kind of seeing them again and telling them that I love them and having them tell me that they love me too. I think it's a meaningful song.
Okay. Let me hear about Woodstock. You were there, right? Let me hear what it was really like there.
I was one of the 10 million people that claim to have been at Woodstock.
Oh, okay.
Well, here's the deal. That summer I was working at a hotel in the Catskill Mountains. I was playing in the show band in the Catskill Mountains, which was a great job. It's best job in the hotel. Okay, you had a rehearsal at 4:00. You played the show at 8:00, and you were kind of like kings. And I knew that Woodstock was about to happen, and it was going to happen maybe 15 miles away from this hotel. So the week before, I drove out. I knew the back roads, and I went to the site and I actually saw them constructing the stage. The hill was just spectacular. The site was spectacular. And I was one of the people. I bought a ticket, and I figured.
So you actually bought tickets to Woodstock. You didn't.
You're supposed to have a ticket, okay? I bought a ticket, and I finished the show on Saturday night, and I was going to wait until the morning on Sunday to go to the festival, and I knew the back roads, so I took the back roads, and I got to the festival. I don't know, early morning on Sunday of the festival. just as a guy named Joe Cocker was going on the stage, and the sun was coming up, and he did that version of the Beatles, "A Little Help from My Friends," which I always thought was maybe the high point of the whole festival. And in fact, the interesting thing is I learned from that version. He made that song his own, and that's one of the reasons why I started to adapt these iconic songs on my albums and try to make them my own, because I saw that it could be done by a guy like Joe Cocker. So it was really cool.
When you choose the songs, Robert, is it like "I Want to Be Your Man" or Joe Cocker, or I have a few that Jimi Hendrix songs, "Fire." Is it songs you like, or they just move you in some way? Like, how do you choose those kind of songs, to record?
Good question. I mean, I got to love the group, and I got to love the song, and I
Okay.
have to be able to do something with it that makes it mine. I'm not from the school that says you do a cover and you try and sound exactly like the original. I would say most people that do covers, that's the way they do them, and that's okay. That's okay for other people, but for me, I have to hear in my head, how can I make this song my own? Just like a guy like Joe Cocker made "A Little Help from My Friends" his own.
What do you think of Elvis Presley?
He was a little bit before my time, but how can you argue against that? He was the king.
Hmm. Who do you think was the greatest jazz musician ever?
Well, for me, there was a guy named Jaco Pastorius, a bass player,
Okay.
who played in a band called Weather Report. Jaco Pastorius was by far the best bass player that, in my opinion, ever played. And like so many musicians, unfortunately, he died at a very young age. He was, I think, in his early to mid 20s. And
Why do musicians seem to die early? At least I know in the 70s there was that run of them, or just a lifestyle, or
yeah, I think so.
well,
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I've never been one that's big on drugs or extreme lifestyle. I don't really understand why music attracts people with that. I guess it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But for me, if anything that would take away my creative ability or put me into some kind of a fog, that's not what I wanted. But boy, there's so many musicians that went down the wrong road, shall we say? But they were talented as can be.
all right, I want to hear about a couple, before we wrap up, your own label, Cakewalk. I mean, I find it fascinating of artists to have their own label. Like, tell us how that came into play.
Well,
Cakewalk.
in the old days, everybody needed to be signed to one of the big labels because
Right.
they controlled the music business. The music business that existed then is nothing remotely like the music business now. I mean, there aren't music record stores any longer. People don't even listen to CDs any longer. I don't know people that own a CD player. Okay, I make CDs for all of our albums just because, for reviewers and other people, you need to make CDs. But I don't know anybody that's got a CD player. And people don't download anymore. So everything, unfortunately, in my opinion, has gone to streaming. And streaming is not my cup of tea. I mean, I do it. We've got all our music on Spotify and all of that, but there's something wrong when Spotify is worth, I don't know, 30, 40 billion dollars, and they're paying me 0.00001 cent per stream. Okay. Something's wrong with that. So anyway, I formed my own record label years ago. I maintain ownership of all of my masters, all of my publishing, which to me, those are my babies. Why am I going to give them away to a record company that probably is not going to do anything to promote my music anyway? So it's a different world.
Is there actual these days on, say, East Side Sessions? Is there an actual, like thing that I could get, or that you could sign an autograph and send to me, or is it all streaming stuff?
No,
I
no, no,
mean,
no, no. Got a CD. I'd be happy to
oh, really?
autograph it and send it to you.
Okay. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
kidding?
Okay. Okay. I'd love to have
Sure.
that. Yeah. I'll put it on my wall, and
I'll
and
send you
listen to it.
new ones too.
Okay. 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 And where's the future for for Robert? Like where do you see yourself like a year from now? How's that question?
Hopefully, I'm still alive.
Okay. It's
In
the
this,
new perspective on COVID. I'm just trying to get to tomorrow now,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Look, I do what I do. I am. I feel very fortunate that I have the ability and the time and the wherewithal to write and record music and get it out there and get it into people's hands and have reviewers that like what I do. I mean, for me, there's nothing more satisfying than all of that. And I hope that a year from now, I'm doing exactly that.
Where do you see music itself going? I know it's an unpredictable thing, but what's the future of music in 2 years?
Oh God, I wish I knew the answer to that. I mean, look, I have to say I'm more mired in the past musically than I am tethered to the current. I listen to current music, but it's not something that I feel or I'm going to write. So I haven't the faintest idea where music is going to go to a year or so from now, but it's going to go on a path. The thing about music that's always been the case, popular music, most of the innovation has started in the Black community and has transferred over to the white community over time. That's what happened with Elvis. It's what happened in the 60s. Motown became the thing for white kids. And I expected, hip hop and rap, it's the same thing now. So you have to look to that community and say, where are they going to be a year or two from now? Because I think that the white community, for the most part, is going to be following them. And I don't mean that in a racist sense. I just mean that's the way it's been.
That's the way it's been since the 1920s or since the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. I always wondered, and I love it having musical guests. It seems like there's only been a couple of, nuclear superstars. You had Elvis, you had the Beatles, obvious, maybe Sinatra before Elvis. I always put Michael Jackson maybe up in there. And there hasn't really been one since. I mean, I thought when I was a kid, every 5 or 10 years, you had these great superstar guys come out, and I was wondering, and I'm waiting for each decade. I go, is there ever going to be one like that again? Like, what's your opinion on that?
It's hard to see.
This is my own little opinion. Am I kind of right on this? Are those names the right ones? Or
yeah, you're right. But
okay.
It's hard to see how anybody attains that same level of success. But I'm sure after Elvis Presley, nobody ever imagined that the Beatles would be around. And I'm sure after Sinatra, nobody imagined Elvis Presley. So who knows? There's always going to be creativity and there's always going to be new things coming up. And I look forward to all of that.
So there will be probably another superstar to that magnitude at some point.
And hopefully you'll recognize that person or persons early on.
That's why
I knew it.
Robert, I have to ask, are the sunglasses like the Roy Orbison thing, or is that your look? Or I noticed in your video you have them and you're grooving around with the songs. Just curious with the sunglasses. I like it.
It's definitely my look. And I started doing it, I'll tell you a little secret, because when I play on stage, I tend to roll my eyes up in my head. So It looks a little bit like Village of the Damned. And I said, I don't want that to be my look. So I started wearing sunglasses a long time ago, and that's just been my look.
Could there be concerts on Zoom, like getting your band in there and then playing, like a concert type situation?
Yeah, like I said before, if you had everybody in the same room, you can live stream on Zoom or several other, platforms. But you have to all be in one room in order to do that, and that's been difficult for us to do.
Is that something that people are doing now?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's plenty of bands that are live streaming, concerts on bands in town, and probably on Facebook and Twitch and stuff like that. If they can do it, fine.
Let's hit and miss the first word that comes to your mind. Ready? All right. Who is the greatest basketball player of all time?
Greatest basketball player?
Yeah.
Well, probably Michael Jordan.
Okay. That's fair. That's an argument I always have with my friends, so that's a good one,
Well, it's on him, right?
Robert Miller, I thank you for coming on. This was great. Great. You have to send me the album that you mentioned before. What is the name of it once more?
I'm going to send you 2 albums, East Side Sessions, and I'm going to send you Summer of Love.
Okay, Summer of Love. Okay. And one more thing for our audience: where do they find your music? Is it Amazon or streaming or iTunes?
Yeah, look, we're on all of the different platforms, but the best thing to do is go to our website.
Okay.
It's projectgrandslam.com. It's got everything on it, all of our music, all of our videos, all of our reviews, articles. It's got everything. And of course, you can stream us on Spotify, and you can buy stuff on Amazon. Everybody's got to be in all these different places. But I really like that mothership that we've got with the website, because that's something I can control, and I can make sure that it's putting everything forward in a way that I think works best for what we do.
Well, I know the songs must be great because the three I heard makes you feel in a great mood. I felt great. The singer's great, very charismatic. You almost can't take your eyes off her, in the video. You also, you're bopping around. And the music, I know it's great because I wanted my wife to hear it. I go, you got to check this out. So, when you start showing it to people, you must really like it,
Now we're talking. Okay,
yeah,
I want to hear what your wife has to say.
Yes. What?
I said, I want to hear what your wife has to say.
She just went shopping. But next time I'll tell you, she liked it when I gave it to her. She was okay with it, So
That's great.
That is Robert Miller. I am Ray K, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of New HD NYC. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform.